Hello and welcome to the Bottom Up Skills Podcast. I'm Mike Parsons. I'm the CEO of Qualitance, and we are going to get mega practical in the world of rapid prototyping. Today, I'm going to take you through the step-by-step guide for when you're in the moment, where you're testing with users. And I can tell you, when you put a prototype in front of a user, it sounds very straightforward, but understanding us fellow humans is not necessarily the easiest thing. It can be tricky. And when the feedback from a user is a bit mixed, and you're really in those early stages trying to work out what's going on, what I have found is that this 5-step guide is essential. And particularly if you've got some newbies who might not be so comfortable hearing directly back from users and customers, this will be really, really essential for you, for your colleagues. And frankly, it just helps keep you on track. So we'll get into this famous step-by-step guide for rapid prototyping. But to set this up, I really want to present you with the moment. It's the moment of truth. And this, I want you to imagine you're with a small group of your colleagues. You're all working on creating a new product and you're pretty excited. You've recruited in end users who are the target audience, and you've presented them with a prototype, and you've asked them to complete a task. Let's say I love using the mortgage calculator example. Let's say you've asked them to work out how much they can get as a mortgage loan. What's the loan amount? And you've got an online mortgage calculator where they can work that out. You give them the task, you've set the context, they try to use it, and then it doesn't work. Now, it could be they're giving you a voiceover as they click through the journey, or maybe it's their body language, or maybe at the end you ask them after they've attempted to complete the task. And the feedback could be mixed, bad, or just otherwise. And you're like, ugh. Now, I spoke about in the last episode that we just need to be open to this. Sometimes I see people that are just not used to receiving such direct feedback. And, let's be honest, when it's not great, it's a little uncomfortable. But I'm going to give you this 5-step guide when you're rapid prototyping that will really serve as sort of a set of railway tracks for you, just to travel along, hit your stations, and get to Central. So the first thing I want to talk about is that you've kind of got these 5 stages. I want to introduce those and then tell you how you navigate them. This is all to be used when you're in the moment. You are creating the prototype to test with the user. It could be that the users are coming in 10 minutes. Maybe you're in the middle of testing. Maybe you've got one last test for the day. This 5-step guide will help you. Okay. So the first step in this is to understand. It's all about understanding where you are. Are we trying to understand? That's the first step. Are we trying to ideate, decide, build, or test? Okay. Understand, ideate, decide, build, or test. These are the 5 steps. Now, the reason these are so important is that often people who are building, creating rapid prototyping environments, creating prototypes, often misinterpret where they are in the process. So they might think they've really got this thing, but actually it's built on a really fundamental, poor understanding of the user. And that will just cause no end of havoc for you guys. So number 1, you need to make sure, and you can imagine, I want you to imagine you're ticking these off as I go through. Do we understand the user? And this is all about being open, being curious, and you really want to use some of the methods that I've talked about. Could be card sorting, role playing, even user interviews. You can really start to use those in your prototyping just to confirm your understanding of the user and their needs. Particularly here, what do you want to understand? What are their pains that they experience when they do the task? And what are the gains that they're looking for? Okay, so that's the understand. Once you understand where they are, you can then ideate. And to ideate, you can ask questions like, What if we created the world's best online mortgage calculator? What if the loan amount that you got in that calculator was valid for 48 hours without having to go to the branch? Or you might ask, how might we? Or other ones are great, which are like, what needs to be true to create something fantastic? So this is where you really start to shift away from sort of the curiosity of the understanding phase. Now you're getting creative and energetic in the ideation, and everyone should play a role there. So if you can tick understanding of the user, tick, we've got lots of ideas. The next thing, and this is really important, very often it's overlooked, you need to decide what we're going to build. Now, if your team's doing well, you can have a lot of ideas on the board. So the question then is, what are we going to build? So that's why we break out the deciding step as its own step. And you really need to have some critical thinking about, well, what's our evaluation criteria? And I love two questions that could sort of help you create a kind of top 10 list. What's the quickest to make? So that's being super practical. Like, what can we just pump out, make it happen? And then the other question you could ask of all of the ideas on the wall, you could say, which one's going to have the most impact for the user? Now, two very different ways into reorganizing all of those ideas so you can decide what you want to make. Now, it could be for the first part of the day, you work on the quick ones, and in the second half of the day, you go for the real big, impactful ones when you're a bit warmed up, or vice versa. That choice is really yours, and deciding and discussing as a team is essential. So we understand the user, we've ideated a ton of ideas, we've now decided which idea we're going to make. So now we need to build. Now the building is really important because you need to bring the idea sufficiently to life in order to create the direct experience. And so what you really want to do is have a bit of a list. You might have posters, storyboards, use journey maps, content. You might have some digital stuff, might have paper stuff. Everything's up for creativity at this point. But actually, more importantly here, it's all about assigning tasks within the group and getting people really productive. Because sometimes you might have a real doer in the group who wants to build everything. But my experience has been that very rarely works because it's like everything's on one person and then the scale of the work is too high. They can't produce the prototype, the screens, the clicks, the pieces of paper quick enough. And so the user testing sort of loses a lot of momentum. But decide what you want to build. And in what we just talked about then was that, all right, make a clear choice for what the form of the building is going to be and give out tasks within the group. Everyone can play a role so that you know what you're going to build. Lastly, the testing stage. So the most important thing, you're sitting there, you've got your prototype. You feel really good about the first 4 steps. You've got your prototype. What do you need to do? You need to create a scenario. Where is the user going to be? What are they going to try and do? What are the constraints that they have? So you need to have a very clear task ready for them. And then you need to be ready to receive feedback, to watch them use. You're not selling them at all. So you just give them a task and then you just watch, learn and listen. And then at the end of that, you might have some of your users actually present the prototype to other users. Fantastic technique for learning a lot about advocacy and sharing. But this is how you really can learn a lot through the testing and get all those good insights. You need to have that structure, the scenario, setting up ready for testing. So there you have it. Those are the 5 steps. Understand, ideate, decide, build, and test. Now, here's the key. If your testing is always failing, maybe you need to go back to the build stage and build the same idea in a different way. If that keeps failing, then you need to go back again and decide on a different idea, maybe use a different evaluation criteria. If none of that is yielding you results, and that's when I'd be stepping in to help you out to say, guys, let's try and fix this. I would actually go back to the ideation and let's re-ideate, let's reimagine this, let's go at it a different way. And lastly, if we're still struggling, maybe the real truth here is we just don't understand the user. So you could be seeing this as you go through all of this, understand, ideate, decide, build, and test, and then you might have to go back a couple of steps because you were failing in the validation. And the failing's okay. There's really no problem with that. In fact, it's really good because you'll get better and better over time. And before you know it, you'll test, you'll get some green lights, you'll get some thumbs up, and you'll be on your way to building a great product. So there you have it. Here are the 5 steps. I hope that this is something that you can bring to life in all of your sprints when you're rapid prototyping. And remember that if you want to download the fantastic printout that we have of these 5 steps, we always put them next to Teams when we're rapid prototyping. It really serves as a handy guide for them. You can go to bottomup.io where you can get a full rapid prototyping masterclass. It's all free, so just sign up there and you'll be able to download that and use it at will in all of your rapid prototyping sessions. All right, that's it for this episode of the Bottom Up Skills Podcast.